Welcome to the Chompcast. My name is Morgan Barnes. I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by the crew of Sword Chomp. Get to some quick introductions here. Joshua Fowler.
Hey, everybody.
Shay Layton.
Owie.
And Anthony Fisher.
Hello, everybody.
Shay tried to throw us. Shay tried. He tried to throw us off, but it didn't work.
Hey, I got you for a few seconds.
So that pregnant pause. We got a really fun show today. Star Wars is one of the main topical questions I have for the crew today. As Battlefront 2 trailer released, as well as The Last Jedi, we have some topics sort of reliving old classic video game demo memories that was inspired by the fact that the first hour of Prey is going to be available for everyone. And lastly, I wanted to kind of get the temperature from the crew on like whether the length of a game and duration of it really affects, how much they feel. If it's a good quality game, that it rectifies the purchase, so to speak, spending $60 for like a 10-hour game. If it's a good game, are you okay with that? And that was inspired by the new Uncharted Lost Legacy game will be releasing in August, and it's going to be about 10 hours long, according to Naughty Dog, and it's going to cost about $40. We have a listener email as well. So it's going to be a really fun show. I'm really excited about this one in particular because we are going to talk Star Wars for the first time, which is one of the fandoms of all fandoms. And we've never talked about Star Wars on the show.
I don't think we have.
Well, the first rule of Star Wars is that you don't talk about Star Wars.
the first rule of Star
I'm pretty sure I think that's how that went.
You have to tread lightly, Josh, because Star Wars fans are a sensitive fan base, okay? And you have been known to make a lot of people mad in your day.
I know. It's all right. We'll tread lightly.
We will. It's gonna be fun because
Nanu.
I'm kind of cool to see. I'm kind of cool to see. I'm kind of excited to see how you guys feel about different elements of Star Wars because it just doesn't come up a lot among us, even as a group of friends. So it's gonna be a lot of fun for me to even pick you guys' brain as the host. Which is really my goal every show. So, and I'm going to kind of split that topic up into a couple different sections. Oh, and by the way, of course, at the end of the show, I forgot to mention this earlier, we'll kind of just run down our what we've been doing throughout the week, catching up like friends, what games we've been playing, how lives have been, all that good stuff. So, I'm excited because there's a couple different variations to this big Star Wars topic, and I know just from browsing my Instagram every single day that Star Wars is something that people are still incredibly passionate about, to say the least. So I'm sure this is something that people really would like to hear from us. And so I broke down the topic a couple ways. So I want to start with like Star Wars video games because we are mostly a video game podcast after all, and kind of get you guys' feelings or like any memories that stick out with you guys in regards to like Star Wars video games. I know for me, to kind of kick things off here, the one that sticks in my memory the most is Knights of the Old Republic, which I'm always a little bummed that you guys never really got into. Nobody here on the podcast ever played Knights of the Old Republic, right?
No, I have.
Yeah,
I played the first one and the second one.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the first one, but yeah, I felt like there was a little bit too much dice rolling to not have a bunch of friends around. But
so yeah, you just get a bunch of friends in your living room to watch you play, Josh.
Yeah, and that makes it better.
Well, I mean, did you guys play it when it was new, or did you guys go back to it? Like, did you? Because that can make a big difference too. Because it was an Xbox original game, 2003.
Yeah, both of them came out for the Xbox. Yeah, I think I played it for the 360. I think. Because at that time, me and you were living together in that apartment together, Morgan, and I remember you sitting me down and was like, oh, you got to try out this game. So I went out I actually started playing it because you suggested it. So
was that the first one? Well, I remember you and a friend of ours were playing the second one. And there's a big deal there because the second KOTOR is not as good as the first KOTOR. Good in its own ways, but I had no idea you had played the first one, so I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
I think it was the first one. I'm not sure.
I hear hesitance in your voice.
Yeah. I do know in the second one though, there's that like you're out in space and like you're going through your spaceship and there's an attack on your spaceship, and I just remember there's like a fire on your and they like fired on your spaceship. I don't know who was doing it, but like you were actually an android. You were like a R5 or something, and you actually had to maneuver them around the ship and actually put out fires and stuff. It's trippy, but it fit the lore of typical Star Wars, where you see R2-D2 putting out a fire for Luke Skywalker. Well, you're actually commanding a droid in this game and actually putting out fires, which is it was cool, but it definitely had a different story to it.
Well, the second KOTOR is kind of infamous because it was made. I think it was the people that made the second Fallout game, the New Vegas. I'm actually double checking on it right now. It's called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords, and I'm checking the Wikipedia right now. But the reason I mention that is because it was created by Obsidian, so it wasn't actually straight in the BioWare pantheon, which is what I was going to talk to you guys about. Because the first KOTOR was basically the game that made Mass Effect a reality. In all honesty, I was looking up on a bunch of research on it today just out of curiosity because it had been so long, and that game was made by the same people that made the Mass Effect trilogy. And playing it back in 2003, it was basically like I got the same feelings of playing like a Mass Effect game, but it was in the Star Wars universe. And I remember saving up for an Xbox that summer. I was only 18 years old. I was working at like some shitty fast food restaurant, and I was reading all these good things about this game, and I'm like, well, I haven't really been that in the Star Wars in a long time, but if everyone says this is great, I'll give it a shot. And it was just amazing. It was basically less about the Star Wars like classical movies and just more about being part of the Star Wars world. And that was the game that I feel really set BioWare off, because then that team went on to make Mass Effect. We all know how that went. So I can't express to you guys how critical that game was in 2003. Playing it when it first came out, it felt magical. It was so beautiful and just so interesting, and just having the dialogue with the different, it was like a Mass Effect game before we even knew what Mass Effect was. And I remember that kind of rekindled my interest in Star Wars as like an entire fandom to a degree, because I call it kind of fallen away from it. So I have so much love for Knights of the Old Republic in my heart. What about you, Josh?
Excuse me. I mean, I played little bits of the first KOTOR when it came out, just because I had a friend who was really into it, but I never really got into the series that much. Just because, I mean, like I said, a lot of it felt very much like playing D&D or something. Like, just everything you do is based on a roll in the combat, which just felt not great to me. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, if you don't have friends there to make that nonsense fun, and also to completely override your 18th miss in a row, then yeah, it doesn't work as well. But yeah, it was all right. I think my fondest memories of a Star Wars game is actually the old Game Boy Star Wars, which is probably not a good game, but I played a ton of that as a kid.
Game Boy Star Wars.
Game Boy Star Wars, which it was like a side-scrolling fighting game with like a few portions where you're like in the
like a beat 'em up kind of thing.
Almost like a platformer, like that sort of a scale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But not as much platforming. It's kind of, I mean, it wasn't like a Streets of Rage type thing. It was like closer to a platformer, but still mostly a fighting game.
There was like levels to it. I think.
Yeah.
I guess the Super Nintendo games are kind of like that.
Kind of like a Contra sort of a vein, I guess, if anything.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good metaphor.
Yeah, and they had and that was back in the day when you didn't save anything. You played through a game and to see if you could beat it. And so I played through that thing I don't know how many times. To this day, remember that during the escape in the Millennium Falcon Either that or it's whenever you're going to the Death Star. I can't remember. Either one and or both of the times you're in a spaceship, if you just hold down and right, you can't get hit by anything. Which, yeah, they probably put in there some sort of a debugging thing and then left it there. And yeah, I figured that out within, I don't know, probably my third or fourth playthrough, and then did it every other time. So
Yeah, because why not? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's cool. That's going farther back than I expected. So Game Boy, just playing a lot of Game Boy. Was it the original Star Wars game? On
Yeah,
Game Boy?
the original Star Wars game. Just Star Wars on Game Boy. So
Cool, very cool. What about you, Shay? Do you have any fond Star Wars gaming memories?
Yeah. I played randomly Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer on the N64.
Oh,
yeah.
that was a great game.
Yeah.
It really was.
I played a ton of that one too.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a
Fish
good one.
jumps in there. I liked it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's one of those. It's one of those games in theory that shouldn't have worked, but it did. I don't know, because like Episode 1 is so reviled and it's such a simple concept, but they executed it well, almost better than the movie executed itself. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I played that one just off and on as a kid, enjoyed it, and then I played Star Wars Battlefront when my little brothers got it when it pretty much first came out. They had finally gotten an Xbox One for Christmas of 2015, and the game that they got was Star Wars Battlefront. So them and I just took turns playing it, and we played it for like 2-3 days straight, and it was a lot of fun because we would just take turns and watch each other, and then
Just kind of passing the controller kind of a thing.
never really played it again. Yeah,
Man,
it was good. I mean, the graphics were insanely good at the time, and I'm sure they still hold up really well. And obviously, the complaint that everyone else has that I kind of had was I wish that there's more of like a little campaign type of thing. But other than that, I mean,
so
go ahead.
So are you more excited now? That's a good place to kind of fit in now that they've pretty much announced that there is going to be a campaign in Battlefront 2. Sounds like that's right up your alley.
Yeah, definitely. I really want to try that with them inserting a campaign. I think it'll be really good because they had a good formula for the first one. They needed a campaign there to kind of tie it together. It's kind of like when you look at Titanfall. The first one was a solid online game, but they didn't have a campaign. So a lot of people didn't really want to play that. But when they inserted a campaign into Titanfall 2, it was a much better game. So hopefully that's what ends up being the case. Yeah, I hope that's what ends up being the case at least. But other than that, not really. I kind of, admittedly, have always been jealous of all the love that Star Wars gets in video games because I would love to have a Star Trek game where it's kind of like Mass Effect or KOTOR because I think the universe of Star Trek really lends itself to that, and they've never really made an insanely good Star Trek game. So
I feel the same way about Donkey Kong, Shay. It's like Mario gets all the love, and I always feel like Donkey Kong kind of gets second fiddle. And I think it's kind of what Star Trek always seems to be. Is like it's incredibly popular, but it always seems like second fiddle to Star Wars.
Yeah. In some ways, I mean, like I definitely don't think Star Wars has the level of conventions that Star Trek does. I mean, there are Star Trek conventions all around the world, but that's a different conversation entirely. I think in some areas it gets more. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you brought up the pod racing game. I have a funny story about that here in a second. That game, the good memories. I think a lot of people have good memories of that 64 game. What about you, Fish?
A recent game that I played, it's actually in the arcades. I don't know if you guys seen it before. It's pretty trippy. It's